Hello, colleagues. I am making my own introductory video for you. And first off, as you can see, I'm very casual today because this is the first day in more than a week that I've not had some sort of meeting or conference back to back all day long. We've been doing video conferencing for various professional organizations. And so today I was tired and just wanted to wear a hoodie to work. And this is what I would be wearing if you saw me on the street. So I say all that to say that as you record your video, you be you and you be casual because this is just informal introductions to each other. I do think there's value in this exercise for a number of reasons. I developed it because I want you to start thinking about what is within you that is going to sort of guide and craft your professional development. You need to be mindful, beginning right now, of the type of student you want to be and the type of lawyer that you want to be. And I think that your responses to these questions in the video will help you sort of start to understand yourself a little better in the context of the legal profession. So I also want to point out that I tend to call my students colleagues because I think I said in the homepage video, I do think of you as my colleagues. You are my junior colleagues, and you have just started a very intense 3-year probationary training period. When you get to the end of that training period, you will test out of it with the bar exam, and you will finally have permanency in the profession, even if you don't have a job yet. So right now, start thinking of yourself as my colleague. Treat me with the respect of a supervising attorney. I will treat you with the respect that you deserve as a junior colleague. And I think that will, if you take on that frame of mind, I think it will really help you in your professional development. So without further ado, I'm going to answer the questions that I created so that you can learn more about me. So the first question is, what school did I go to and what was my major? I grew up in North Alabama, and I went to undergraduate college at the University of Montevallo, and that's a really small public liberal arts school south of Birmingham. So it's very near Tuscaloosa, where the University of Alabama is, but a much, much smaller school. Our enrollment was capped at 3,500 students, so it was by design meant to be a very intense and small learning environment. And so while I was there on a music scholarship for both performance and for academics, and I majored in instrumental music education. So I was going to be a high school band director. In fact, I was a high school band director for a year. And then I also, after law school, I was an interim music teacher at a Montessori school in New Hampshire, teaching grades nursery school through 8th grade. So I have now taught students from nursery school all the way to a 70-year-old woman who was in a law school class. I really have run the gamut for the type of people that I have taught. I really loved my time in college. I would do the same thing all over again if I could go back in time. Montevallo was a very special place. In fact, I enjoyed my time there so much. I met my spouse there. I intend for my ashes to be buried there with a monument. That's a little morbid, but that's how much I appreciated my undergraduate experience. And then I went to the University of New Hampshire for law school, and we'll get into that with some of the other questions. So what inspired me to go to law school? So, when I was in music school, they were always talking to us about what is your graduate plan. And on one of the professor's cork boards outside his office, there was an article, a very recent article, recent then, I don't know what the statistics are now, but then that year, music education majors, for some reason, had the highest acceptance rate to law school. And, I really loved teaching music, but I couldn't see myself in an Alabama high school teaching for the next 30 or 40 years. I knew that I wanted to go to graduate school. I just wasn't sure really what to do. So I think a lot of people find that, right? I don't know what to do. I'll go to law school. But when I saw that article, I started thinking about how do I combine my music experience with law? And I realized, I could be an entertainment lawyer. So I was all for certain I was going to be an entertainment lawyer. I was going to live in New York or LA or Nashville. And so I started looking for a school that really focused on entertainment law and intellectual property. You may not know the term intellectual property just yet. That's referring to copyrights, trademarks, and patents. So obviously the entertainment industry deals with a lot of trademarks and copyrights, as well as personal right to likeness. So you can't just go publish somebody's picture without their permission. And that happened to be the #1 school at that time for those issues was the University of New Hampshire. And it's still highly ranked for intellectual property. And so I picked everything up and moved to New Hampshire and started law school. The next question was, what jobs have I had, whether good or bad learning experience? And I'm a bit older than most of you probably, so I'm not going to give you every single job I've had. You can look at my CV if you want to know. Of course, I did not include my first fast food job in high school or, the retail jobs I had during high school and through college. So I sort of think about this question in chunks, right? So I sort of have this retail experience, and then I sort of have this world of professional experience, and then I have this world of teaching experience. So the retail experience, again, was high school. I think I did 3 horrible months at Kentucky Fried Chicken, and I couldn't get out of there fast enough. So as soon as I lived in a town that had a huge outlet center, and so as soon as there was an opening at a shoe store, Rack Room Shoes, I was in. And that was a great experience because I learned so much about managing large amounts of inventory, which can be very, very tedious in a shoe store. Then after that, I went on to work at the Ralph Lauren outlet, the Bugle Boy outlet. I worked at JCPenney, Walmart for a little bit, and I managed a coffee shop in college. And through all of that, I learned a lot about good and bad customer service and how to maintain your composure when you are faced with somebody hostile. And that is a skill that you all need to pick up very quickly. If you know that you're a hothead and can't control your temper when somebody challenges you, you need to fix that because that is the practice of law. And when you respond to another attorney who is coming at you with hostility that maybe is uncalled for, is definitely uncalled for because we should always be civil. If you respond in kind with hostility, it's just going to escalate the problem, and you're never going to get anywhere. It's just inefficient and ineffective communication. So for me, those retail experiences and learning how to manage, an angry customer and sort of appease them while still staying within the rules, that really translated well into legal practice. For my sort of teaching part of it, I guess I sort of started teaching in high school because I was a tutor to some elementary students, and I started teaching saxophone lessons at that time. Through college, I taught saxophone lessons and helped with band camps in various high schools. And then during law school, I was a teaching assistant for the first year legal writing program, and I was a teaching assistant for administrative process. And those really helped me realize that your peers can be very skeptical of your knowledge and skills. And there's no need to try to, prove yourself in a sort of concerted and purposeful, I got to show that guy. It's better to just do work, do good work, and let that prove itself. You don't need to buy into this competitive criticism with your peers. It doesn't do anybody any good. And then my other professional experience, I was an executive assistant at a timber company in Alabama that made railroad cross ties. And that was a pretty good introduction to corporate life. I had no idea how much paperwork was involved. In that industry, it's a lot of environmental management issues. And it was really eye-opening. And in fact, at that job, the company was being sued for pollution, and I ended up helping with the discovery and getting the documents organized for the attorneys. So that also was a little bit of inspiration for law school. As a lawyer, I started out as a plaintiff's lawyer suing pharmaceutical and medical device companies. That was pretty interesting. What I learned from that is that you can make a lot of money as an attorney but probably won't. And that at least as an underling associate, you really are not making that much money yourself. You are making partners very wealthy. I also learned at that one that there's a lot of travel involved with lawyering. And I thought it was just that particular practice area. But as I got further into my career and other practice areas, it really is true. There's a lot of travel involved with being a practicing attorney, whether it's conferences or there's a party in another state in a lawsuit that you've got to go travel and depose that client or defend a deposition. I think when you get out into practice, you'll be very surprised how multi-state almost every practice area is. And then I went back to law school to get my LLM, and after that, I returned to Florida and opened my solo practice. Boy, did I learn a lot from that, both good and bad business strategies, how to market myself without spending a lot of money. I could go on for hours about what I learned from running my own practice. And I probably would do it again. It was very challenging, but very rewarding. And yeah, I probably would do it again. So that's sort of what I've learned and how I translate that into what I want to teach you about your future practice from my prior jobs. So back 10 years ago, if I could go back 10 years ago from today, I would be finishing my LLM, and I'm exactly where I thought I would be. At the end of my LLM program, I knew that I wanted to teach law school, and I knew that I wanted to keep publishing scholarship. But at the time, I was going through some personal stuff that really needed me to go back to Florida, and it just wasn't the right time for me. And so I opened my practice, and I didn't graduate from an Ivy League law school, and it's very hard to get into teaching law school if you didn't go to one of those top 14 law schools. So I knew that I had some work to do to sort of set myself up to be a valid candidate, and I did that. So while I was practicing, I made a point to publish and teach CLEs and serve as an adjunct professor at the local university. And I published some stuff, and that all set me up to be where I am today. So that's where I would have been 10 years ago. Now, if I were a 1L and I was going back 10 years, see, that would put me like the middle of high school, the beginning of high school. I think that I probably would have said that I was going to be a doctor, but then I took AP Anatomy and Physiology and dissected a pig and a cat, and that was it for being a doctor. I had the grades and all that, but I just did not have the stomach for it. And to this day, when I think about medical stuff, I can read about it, but when I hear somebody describe a surgery or an injury, it puts me out. When I met my mother-in-law for the first time, she's passed away now, she had just gone through a horrific time with her teeth. She was one of the very first people to have dental implants at the University of Alabama, Birmingham Dental School. It was still a very experimental procedure at that time in the mid-90s. And when they were drilling into her jaw, they broke her jaw. And it was almost 2 years of recovering from that. And, we went over to visit her the day that she finally had all the work done and was finally healthy again. And she was smiling and smiling and smiling and so happy and proud to show it off. And we felt horrible. Later we realized she was just trying to show us her pretty teeth. But then she starts telling me the story of her ordeal, and I completely passed out on the floor. That was the very first time I met my mother-in-law. So I would have been a doctor, that's what I would have said, but yeah, it wasn't for me. I sort of got some of that, interest in anatomy and physiology. It sort of satiated that when I was working in the pharmaceutical industry, suing pharmaceutical companies. The cases that I had were first diet drugs, so it was a lot of cardiovascular and respiratory injuries. And then I led litigation against antidepressants related to birth defects. And so that was a lot about cardiovascular and intestinal injuries. So I do feel like I know a lot about the human body. I just can't look at it. So if I were going to say what was I most excited to learn about during law school, I was excited to learn about everything. But, it turned out that entertainment law was not my gig. I didn't think I would make it through that that first year because I missed teaching so much. And when I finally was in the classroom teaching for my second year as a teaching assistant, it sort of all came together. And I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be teaching. And so, I learned to adapt to law school because there is value in the degree, even if you don't practice. And I really enjoyed being a TA. And then, so thinking about education, I realized, oh, it was the education part of my music degree that was really my passion. And I was fortunate that University of New Hampshire at the time had the Education Law Institute, which was a joint degree program where you could get a master's in education law and a JD. So I joined up in that program, and I did awesome. I loved it. Also in our classes were local superintendents and teachers who were working on administration degrees, and so it was a really great program because we got to hear their classroom school building experience and the law, and they got to hear our perspective from legal analysis of education laws. And so once I got into that program and started taking those courses, they couldn't offer enough courses for me to take in education law. I loved it that much. Let's see. What I want to learn about now, because every day is learning, even when you're practicing, and keep that in mind, your learning does not stop when you graduate from law school or finish the bar exam. Your learning is forever, whether it's CLEs or just paying attention in your practice. You should learn something every day. For me, my scholarship right now is very focused on LGBTQIA. It's a long alphabet now. Issues, especially equity issues in educational settings. I recently published on the need to do a census of transgender students and professors in law schools. And you're welcome to look me up on Westlaw and find that article. And my other interest area are family law, because that was a large part of my practice, specifically collaborative dispute resolution. I'm going to talk about it all semester. You'll be sick of hearing about collaborative dispute resolution. How do I relax? Or what is my hobby? And it's writing, believe it or not. I've published some fiction pieces, no major publications. I'm not making any money from it. But I love to write fiction in my free time. And otherwise music, of course. And I'm a huge marching band nerd. I march drum corps. I still follow all of it. I know what all the local high schools are up to with their programs. And this is a very frustrating season because the Drum Corps International canceled its season. Bands of America has canceled its season for the fall. So it's a very precarious time in my favorite pastime, which is marching band. So you're welcome to refer to me as a band nerd. I wear that proudly. What do I hope to learn from others? I hope to learn every day from my students, and I also hope to learn every day from my colleagues. So from all of you, I learn every day how to improve my work and my communication skills to help you do better in school. And I want to hear, where you're struggling, because that's going to help me understand what I can do better and what I can relay to faculty that they need to do better. For example, during the chaos of the Black Lives Movement, I heard from some of my black students very disturbing comments that they had heard from classmates, and they never reported it because they didn't think that anything would be done about it. And so that prompted me to go to administration and say, hey, we got to do something about trust in our systems. And sure enough, they took that to heart and have done a lot to improve our reporting process. So we take that sort of thing very seriously, and we don't want anyone to suffer in silence. So please come to us if you hear any sort of bigotry or racist or homophobic or any kind of hateful remark about someone else. We don't tolerate that. And if I hear it in my classroom, you'll be asked to leave immediately. What I hope to offer others, I hope to offer a sense of compassion and empathy for both my colleagues and for you, because I think that creates a better learning environment. My teaching philosophy is really related to this idea of community of inquiry. You might also call it collaborative education or cooperative education. But I don't feel like I'm the be all end all of knowledge and that you all should just sit silently and listen to me. I think when we exchange conversation in the classroom and outside the classroom, we learn from each other and we can do better for each other. So I think of McGeorge as, I think the logo is one community. I really think of it that way. We are a community of inquiry, and we are here all together, including students, as colleagues to improve the study of law and the profession. So I think that's all the questions. Wow, 20 minutes. So as you can see, these may be very long videos. You may need to be patient and just let it churn away as it uploads. And obviously, I don't expect you to ramble on for 20 minutes. I'm trying to sort of give you a sense of the casualness with which I expect you to record your introductory video. And I also encourage you to reply to each other in the discussion because, since we can't be in a classroom together, we're going to do our best electronically. All right, so that's my introductory video in my hoodie, which I never actually wear a hood, but I love a hoodie. All right, so we will be in touch soon, and please be in touch with me if I can answer any questions at all. Have a wonderful day.